Good morning and welcome to Policing TV from Bedfordshire Police's headquarters here in the UK. I'm delighted to be joined here by Mish McCarthy. Mish is the force's lead for an initiative called Dragon's Den. So, Mish, thank you for inviting us here.
Thank you.
Let's start for our international audience explaining a little bit about the Dragon's Den and the concept of the television programme.
Yeah, so the Dragon's Den for Bedfordshire Police is the vision of our ACA, Phil Wells, and he asked me to create and lead on the Dragon's Den initiative. It's a great piece of work where we're looking to draw out and support innovative thinking from our staff, our officers, our volunteers and cadets, where we can then work with them to develop their proposals and hopefully bring those ideas to life.
So Dragon's Den, the television programme, effectively has people with bright commercial ideas that they are pitching to a number of dragons, potential investors.
Yeah.
And so in a policing context, it's the bright ideas.
Yeah.
And who are the dragons?
So last year we had Andy Cook, the Chief Inspector for HMSC FRS. We had Steve Richardson.
His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary.
That's the
It's
one,
a
yeah.
mouthful, isn't it?
It's a lot of acronyms now, isn't it? So he was our Chief Judge / Dragon. We also had the CEO of Riven, Steve Richardson, who has worked with Bedfordshire closely on the...
Riven, a supplier.
Yeah, for the auto-redact tool. We had someone from Amazon Web Services who work with us and in fact sponsor the Dragon's Den event. And then last year we had Kimberly Campbell-Lamb from Bedfordshire Police. This year we're looking to have a similar panel and potentially a slight change around, but it's a real mix of kind of external specialist people and also internal knowledge, and then during the Den we also have the Den specialist advisors working with everyone who's coming in to work on it.
Okay, so quite I don't know whether they're scary or not, but they're certainly very insightful individuals.
Yeah.
On the programme the dragons are a little scary, perhaps that's why they're called dragons, but
yeah, no, they're lovely here. They're really supportive panel members. What was a real delight to see to come out of the celebration event in January was for each of our teams presenting, someone from the panel. We'd not only got feedback, great guidance, great advice from all of the panel members, but for each of our three teams, someone on that panel came up with, I think I can offer long-term support, I think I can work with you moving forward, and that commitment has been seen, and we've committed those working relationships to continue.
So starting from scratch, the basic idea, there's a lot of work to do before you get to the point of having the event itself, the Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
So tell us about how that worked in year one.
So for the first year, we weren't really sure if we would even get enough ideas to run with it. There is a lot of innovation already happening within Bedfordshire Police. We are, as any other force, already working really hard with tough works on budgets and resources. So to ask our staff and officers, have you got any more ideas? Is there anything else we can do? Is there more work? That's a tough ask. But actually, we were inundated with proposals. For the first year, we had well over 20 formally submitted ideas, and that's in addition to a wealth of people contacting me with, I know it's not the Den, but it probably doesn't fit, but I think this. And so there was loads of generation of ideas. So people submit an idea, the ones that are suitable to come through to the Den then come into workshops. They work with a host of specialist Den advisors from all the key areas you would think would need it for kind of project support, so finance, HR, comms, ICT, information management, all of the key areas, as well as the teams that are impacted. What we do within the Den, which I think is a really important part of the process, is we have a pause point. So people come knowing straight away, here's an area where something could be improved, and I think this might work. We come into the Den and we break it all apart and we go, right, what actually is the issue? What is the challenge? What is the opportunity? When we really go to the root cause of it, understand the core of the problem, the core of the opportunity, and then we go, right, what's your solution? And is that the right solution? And then we work with the teams to understand the demands of that idea, the demands of the solution. We research, we reach out to all the key people, and ultimately over about 4 or 5 months they gain all of that information, all the right knowledge, create a proposal, and then stand in front of that panel of the experts and pitch, just like on Dragon's Den, to say, hey, I think this is really going to improve Bedfordshire Police, let's take this idea forward.
So there's quite a process there, and so a lot of preparation. And just give our Policing TV and audience an insight into how much time that was taking in by way of preparation. There's a cost associated with time, of course, and we'll come on to the benefits in a moment or two. But what sorts of time and potentially out-of-pocket costs were there in setting all this up? Yeah, so there was obviously myself as the lead for the den. My time was committed to that, and then we had the advisors who gave their time. But really the ask of the people submitting an idea to the den is line managers, where possible, will free people up to attend workshops, to meet with their teams, to go out and speak to people. But there ultimately is going to be an ask for people to work in their own time as well. So it's a real kind of mix of people coming together in work environment, but also that added time. So we're really lucky we've got really committed staff and officers who want to see the improvements made and will make that commitment. Now we're going to have the opportunity to talk to a number of those who've subjected themselves to the dragons, and we'll learn more about the benefits there. But is it fair to say that there have been significant benefits to Bedfordshire Police from this programme? Oh, absolutely, and through a wealth of different ways. So from the quick wins, where it's not the den, but we've been able to manage to grab those ideas and redirect them to the right people, to the right processes. It might not be the den, but let's not lose that idea. Where can we help with that idea? And we've had a lot of success with that. With the other ideas, some of them have come into the den for maybe 2 workshops or 3, rather than the whole 4 or 5 months. And that was enough, that pause point of really understanding, here's what the actual core issue is, I know what the solution, and then they could go off and achieve it without needing that extra time and support within the den. But those of you that reached the final celebration event and pitched their more complex ideas, we're seeing real benefits from those as well. We're seeing developments in our property store development world, we're seeing developments within offender management teams, and hopefully when we run our second round of the den, which is just starting now, we're going to see more ideas come forward as well. Fantastic, really looking forward to what we're going to learn during the course of today. Mish, thank you so much to you and your colleagues for lining up this Policing TV visit. Let's head on in, and we'll meet some of those who can give us further insight to Dragon's Den here in Bedfordshire Police. Perfect. So we're here with Lucy Alexander, one of our project analysts in Bedfordshire Police. Lucy, you submitted an idea to the first Dragon's Den. Can you tell us a little bit about what your idea was and what happened to it?
So the initial idea that I put into Dragon's Den was to do a automation of our vehicle recovery process. So within the FCR, you are dealing with many incidents as a dispatcher, one of which will always be things like Section 165, which is recovery for vehicles with no insurance or vehicles that have been involved in RTCs, and obviously part of that is cleaning up the road. To arrange a vehicle recovery currently, a dispatcher will have to call our recovery agent, give them details, and then ask for a recovery to be sorted. Now, when you're a dispatcher on the radios, you're talking to officers constantly, and to come away from speaking and engaging with your officers to call a separate recovery agent can often be quite difficult when it's busy, and sometimes it does hold a certain risk because you can't be as an alert to what officers are doing and what they need from you. So my hope was that if we could automate that function, we could be asking for recovery whilst also simultaneously speaking to the officers, being attentive with them and doing what they need from us. What I found from doing the den was that actually, unfortunately at this time, the solution of automating it is not viable for the force, but it was still a really great experience going through the Den, and the lessons learned benefited me as a new project analyst, but also the FCR as a whole, because I was able to feed back lessons learned to the Chief Inspector of the FCR, but also my old colleagues as well, who found frustration in not being able to automate that process anyway.
That's brilliant. That's really important. Were there any personal developments that you gained from coming through the Den? Any other benefits from being part of the process?
Yeah, so I think the time that I was in the Den was really crucial within my new career as a project analyst. I had just started in this new department. It was my first step into project work. So for me, it was spreading my wings as a project analyst in both the idea I submitted, as well as being able to help out the other people who were in the Den at the same time. It also meant that I was able to meet people from finance, our colleagues from ICT, colleagues from information governance, who I'd never really interacted with in my previous roles, and it meant that networking felt natural and not like I was bothering them, trying to introduce myself, trying to create connections with people. It was a really seamless process.
Perfect. Thanks, Lucy.
So I did Dragon's Den because there was an issue in my day-to-day role where admin was very heavy, and I thought of using an app or technology to our advantage to create a talk, sort of voice to text transition app that would allow me to work quicker and more efficiently in my day-to-day role. I was given support throughout the Dragon's Den by the Dragon's Den team that were there to support me throughout the whole process and allow me time to develop my idea with the additional support provided by them, obviously by my supervisors as well, and by sort of ICT with regards to the technology involved. Dragon's Den gave me the time to then develop this idea and see how that could run and how it could work. And obviously when I was successful at the Den, then it sort of graduated and developed quite quickly from there. There were issues along the way and barriers that we had to overcome, especially when it involves technology within sort of the police. That's always a stumbling block. So then things took a little bit longer than expected, but over time we sort of overcome them barriers. I was supported with regards to speaking to Black Marble, who currently run 2Serve that the police already use, to explore how their company could support me with my idea. And we also spoke to Matthew Lashley from Axon and the company that he runs, where we can utilise their company and their technology to basically get my idea moving forward with regards to that.
Any highlights?
In addition to that, we test drive Copilot as well, and we ran that for a little while in between the two options. The highlights of the Den for me were, it's a hard one really, but what started off as an idea then just took off, and then I could see how it would benefit not just my department but other departments within the police force as well, other units that I work closely with, and units further afield within the force that I think could truly rejuvenate the way we work, save officers time, reduce the amount of admin time that we take doing these basic tasks, and use that technology to our advantage. Other highlights of the Den, obviously had a lovely evening meal at the Woodlands Manor as well. That was great.
Similar question. Would you recommend the Den, and if so, why, or how would you sell it to somebody within the force to get involved in?
So I would recommend Dragon's Den to any of my colleagues, because I'm not particularly a techie person, and I come up with an idea, and I couldn't believe the amount of support that I was given in relation to this. Misha McCarthy has worked tirelessly throughout as well to support me with my idea, so I'd like to thank her as well on record. But if anyone's got an idea that they think probably wouldn't get listened to, I would encourage them to put that idea forward, and you never know how far that thing's going to go and how much it could benefit you in your job role or other colleagues in the department. So my advice is, if you have an idea, put it forward to the Den. You will get supported throughout.
So I'm here with Molly from Bedfordshire Police's Corporate Comms. Molly, you've worked with me on the Dragon's Den previously. I'm wondering if you can tell me some of the highlights of working on this process.
So I'd say one of the main highlights would be the comms itself, being able to put out comms externally and internally. Externally, it's such a pro for us, just in terms of having the public being able to see all the learning that we're doing and all the development. Internally, being able to improve our staff's actual comms skills itself. So being able to teach presentation skills and stuff like that.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm here with Phil Wells, our Assistant Chief Officer for Bedfordshire Police. Phil, the reason we have Dragon's Den here in Beds Police is because of you. Perhaps you could share how the idea came to bring it into our force.
Yep, thanks Mish. I think it's a fairly simple reason of why we've got it in. We make sure that we hear in Bedfordshire the voice of our employees, and that's police staff and police officers. And we were trying to bring their ideas into fruition. And one way of doing that is something we learned from the National Health Service, that they do service visits. And we brought those into Bedfordshire Police in 2019. And we go out to every single unit and ask them what's going well, what's not going so well, and what could they do differently. And from that, we understood really clearly that there were some really good ideas out there in terms of how we can do the job differently. And policing has a bit of a culture whereby it sometimes tells people what it thinks is right rather than listen to what people think is right. And as a result of that, and a programme which we call our Futures programme, which is starting to say, what is policing going to look like in 5 years, 10 years time, rather than what does it look like tomorrow? And as a result of those two things, we started thinking differently about innovation. And one of those things about innovation was, how do we really get employees, officers and staff's views live? And that was Dragon's Den. And ever since then, I've took something to our Chief Constable and said, I think this is something that we should be doing in Bedfordshire Police. It gives our officers and staff a voice. And as a result of that, that's hallelujah, that's how we got to the Den.
Perfect. And I think it's quite safe to say that the exec as a whole have been really on board and really supportive with the Den. And you've been quite involved. You've come to the celebration events and you've helped with messaging. I think what have been some of the things that you've seen that have been really great about what's happened with the Den coming into Bedfordshire Police?
I think the most important thing is that people feel they have a voice and a place to give their ideas. And actually, I think what people have seen is when they do have an idea, and when it's a good idea, the force actually gets behind it and delivers against it. And I think that is why we're seeing quite a few more ideas come through in Dragon's Den Part 2, or Phase 2, whichever you want to call it, because people have seen that what ideas went forward in Phase 1 actually came to life. And actually we said we wouldn't have anybody from the executive on the panel. It would be an external panel, and if that panel decide there is a really good idea for Bedfordshire Police, then we would put our money and our effort behind it.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm here outside the Bedfordshire Police relatively new custody suite and wider facilities here with Audrey Campbell, who leads for the force on innovation. And Audrey, you have other responsibilities besides. Give us your proper job title, if you would.
Thank you, Bernard, and welcome to Bedfordshire Police. I'm Audrey Campbell, Director of Strategic Services and Improvement. So I lead the team in the innovation world, but also in the strategic direction of the force and looking at the futures, the 10-year business strategy.
So part of your responsibilities, which we'll come on to in a second or two, is Dragon's Den, which fits within the innovation sphere. But Dragon's Den isn't the only work that the force does on innovation. Tell us something about that wider work.
Okay, the great stuff that we do in Bedfordshire Police on innovation and the wider scenarios, if you like. We've always been innovative as a force with less funding. So we've always had to think a bit differently and a bit out of the box, thinking about productivity and efficiency. We do things like service visits. So our senior exec team go out to all of the teams and they collect ideas from across the businesses and all the business areas and all the teams within the force, telling us how things could be done differently and more efficiently, sometimes with some investment, sometimes just with a change in process. Also looking at continuous improvement from a lean perspective. We've built that in for many years now. That's something that we've always done, trying to look for perfection in processes, which we never will get to. But we also then look at employee ideas. So it's a new process in the last couple of years where anybody across the force can send us an idea that they might have. It doesn't have to be approved or signed off by anybody, but it can just be sent into the force. We will then have a look through that. We've got a whole innovation group and governance around that, so we look at all of the ideas that come in, and then obviously Dragon's Den.
So Dragon's Den, how does Dragon's Den fit with those wider ideas? Is it a question of scale? So ideas can be, let's get a franking machine. Actually, the days of a franking machine are probably long gone. But whereas Dragon's Den is more substantial, is that right?
It is, and what we're trying to do with Dragon's Den is probably look at the ideas that come in that are policing issues, and we could possibly find a solution to policing issues. We worked on, for instance, auto redaction in the last couple of years with a new startup company who developed auto redaction within 13 weeks for us. It's something that's now across many forces within the UK. So of course we're always looking at not just things that will improve Bedfordshire Police, but obviously that's our priority, but wider policing and trying to address those wider national policing issues.
Maybe a silly question, but are you proud with what Dragon's Den is already achieving?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Proud with the force, with the teams that are all involved in it, and everybody actually in Bedfordshire Police for the great job that they do.
And more to come?
Yes, definitely more to come.
Mish, thank you so much to you and to your Bedfordshire Police colleagues for telling us something of Bedfordshire Police's Dragon's Den initiatives. If our viewers want to find out any more about Dragon's Den, how can they do so?
Yeah, really glad to be sharing the Den news with you, Bernard, and with everyone online. If anyone's interested in hearing more about Dragon's Den at Bedfordshire Police, just reach out to myself, Mish McCarthy at Beds Police, and I'm more than happy to discuss more details.
Excellent. mich.mccarthy
at Beds. Yeah, perfect.
So thank you, Mish, really kind of you. From Bedfordshire, cheerio.